Kia ora and welcome to the Marlborough Book Festival podcast, the place where you can hear writers talk about their work, their lives and the inspiration behind their writing. I'm Sonia, the chair of the committee. Tickets are now on sale for this year's festival, which runs from the 25th to the 28th of July and features an incredible lineup of authors. Visit marlboroughbookfest.co.nz for more information and to buy your tickets. For now, sit back, relax and enjoy this session from the 2023 Book Festival.
Hi everyone, welcome this afternoon. It is such a pleasure to be here. I'm Kirsty Sutherland, part of Dog Point Vineyards, and we've been sponsors of the Book Fest since it started about 2014, I think it was. So it is so lovely also to have Joanne Drayton staying with us at the Bell Tower. It's really wearing our t-shirt, which is great too. And we've also got Jane Forrest Waghorn here, who is a very strong supporter of the Book Fest as well, to help with the presenting. Yeah, so lovely to have you both here today. Thank you.
So it's a great pleasure for me to be talking with you. I'm going to turn my shoulder this way because I am a little bit old and deaf.
Don't say that we're the same age almost.
Yes. That's right. We've just had this series of coincidences since we've started talking to each other to realise that there is a degree of commonality between us. We were at Canterbury University at the same time. And Jo, last night when she met me, she said, Waghorn, that's a famous name.
Yes, I did actually say
and
that.
And it was nothing to do with Simon at all, for those of you that know him in the wine industry, but to do with Banks Peninsula. And The Queen's Wife is a book that I didn't know about, and it has been such a joy for me to read it and think about it, and obviously now to talk to you about. But shall we start with objects, since we've got these two objects here?
Please do. I love objects.
Yes.
I do.
So at the beginning of the book, you talk about the importance of objects.
Yes.
Which is a refreshing thing for a woman who lives in a house with a lot of objects.
I grew up in one of those.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what I'm really excited about is these objects here.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to talk about, just briefly, what these objects are and they're important?
Okay, so this is you I'm not sure whether you're going to see it up on the screen. I don't think he's up there. But I responded in a series of carvings to the Lewis chess pieces as a sense of my tribal kind of heritage, my tonga. And I wanted to bring them into my life, not as sort of souvenirs and copies, but as something that I'd spent time actually creating myself. And I had that very real sort of bicultural Māori sense of an object actually carrying the spirit of the maker and the successive owners. So I really deeply believed that. And I thought, well, it'll give me something to do, and because I've got so much spare time, and also I did it because I was working in a design department, and I was actually all about words. So I'm a historian, design historian, art historian, and so they always. I was second class, and I had always for years I'd carved, and I thought I could have a design practice. Well, when I told this colleague of mine, who is a real designer and a real artist, that I was carving dog bones, she laughed at me, and I showed her, and she laughed harder because it was I was just sort of developing it, and so in a way it fulfilled a need to create. And a need to try and keep my job as it became apparent that we were going to lose our jobs, be restructured potentially out. And so I grabbed this practice that I did. And I just always think objects are, this is actually not the real one. It's actually a copy. So it's a resin copy I made. But I really slightly resent the fact that when I'm pushing up daisies, this will still probably be in the world. I guess that's all about plastics, but that's It's a worry. But actually, yeah. Objects in a way they have an ongoing life. Often they live for beyond the creator.
And I didn't really mean to bring my own story into this, and this is not my own story. This is my husband's story. If you've read the book, at the beginning it starts with you collecting objects from Banks Peninsula.
Yes.
And one of the places that you visited was Double Bay, which was where my husband's family farmed. And this is a sperm whale's tooth from that farm, which would be... You could probably carve that, but I don't think Simon would be very
My fingers
impressed.
are twitching. I honestly, I can't.
I might move
don't put it down. Too close. Because the Lewis chess pieces were actually made out of walrus tusks. Yeah, and at some point we'll get a walrus up there, hilarious one, by Dura. Don't look too early, but no, it's all right. No, I don't want a spoiler alert. So they were made out of noir, the whale. With the one, I couldn't believe those things. They're amazing. So it's a whale with one long tooth out the front. So a couple of them were made out of that, and the rest were made out of walrus ivory. So we're talking about 1150, sort of 1250, sort of in that period. So roughly, medieval and Romanesque.
So we should
originals.
Stop for a minute because we've gone off on this tangent.
I love that.
But the book has got 3 strands. And there are 3 stories within it, really, that intertwine. Can I just read that beautiful quotation? Excuse me. Which I think is really beautiful. Te Whero, who we'll talk about in a minute, saw himself as the eye of a needle through which the white, the black and the red threads must pass. It's a beautiful image, and it's an image that applies to the book. 3 very distinct colours threaded together, making a pattern. And the chessmen are one of those threads.
Just one.
One.
Yeah. Although, yes, they
become parted too, really, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do. And in a way, they're also the metaphor that kind of pulls the threads together.
Yes.
So they operate in different ways.
And do you want to tell us what the other 2 threads are?
Well, the other 2 threads are my partner Sue's sort of whakapapa genealogy, the discovery of identity, her identity, her family, the research around that, and it was much of which was actually prompted when I said that I want a bicultural chess set. I am 2 cultures. I'm not, I actually started and intended to do both sides as in response to the Lewis chess pieces, which has a red side and a white side. But when I really searched my soul, I realised that actually that wasn't me. That was only part of me. And I think when you've grown up in New Zealand, you really are deeply immersed and embedded by the double values, the values of Pākehā cultural embedded ideas, but also of Māori. And I felt very, I guess in some ways, those threads are my objects, my treasures, which I wanted to bring back, and Sue's search for the connections to her family, which were really lost because of the shame of being Māori and the desire of her grandparents, great-grandparents, to actually be as white as they could.
Yeah.
So it's a sad kind of thing.
Yeah. And then the 3rd story thread, we're going to go back to them all. I'm just doing sort of an introduction.
Okay, rightio. Yes.
And the 3rd story is?
So it's a slice of memoir that in a way represents or begins with one of the most exciting moments of my life and the big change, and that was meeting Sue, and then the story actually starts with running away with my son. So that's might sound like a lot of provocative stuff, but it doesn't start. It's not cradle to grave. I haven't actually got there yet. I did have a cradle. I did that, but it's actually just a slice of our life together, of how it all started, how it all came about. And I originally wanted to just write it past the point where I was escaping with Jeremy. But in the end, I had some focus groups because I really wanted to know what people actually wanted to read. And they said, but what about your first kiss when you first met? What about all that kind of background? And I thought, oh, Mum, I really wanted to miss that out.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, it was kind of, I don't know, that does feel quite intensely personal, doesn't it? And
yes.
In some ways, I wasn't just exposing myself, but I was also exposing my partner. And it was, but really, in a way, that was the wake-up call I needed, because I was being too careful and maybe conveniently missing out too much and taking it from a point at which I thought the adventure began, or the dire adventure. But actually going back and actually writing that in and really was quite cathartic. You should watch out for those memoirs that are cathartic, but it was also a celebration as well of us getting together and the consequences.
And I've got several thoughts in my mind. I hope I don't wander, but it's really the first time I believe that I've read in a biography that is so real and true and talks about the first kiss.
Yes.
Because really we come out of an era of we didn't talk about kissing.
No.
Let alone petting bottoms, let alone lust, let alone having sex at all. And, we're talking about the late 70s.
Yes.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
And it was, New Zealand wasn't a liberal place.
No, it wasn't. And in some ways we still aren't. I think things have shifted, but it's not the quantum shift you'd want. I think New Zealand was very repressed, and although it may have given votes to women, it was really to stop the men from going to the pub. There were lots of reasons, good reasons, social and political reasons why we gave women the vote. So that makes us look horribly progressive. But in actual fact, in terms of sexuality, I think we're really quite prudish, and we're very conservative, I think, and have been. And in some ways, the hardest word I ever found to say was lesbian. And it was really, I mean, it took. I still have a little bit of trouble getting the L word out, but because it was so contaminated, and it had so much negative stuff around it, and for me, from a sort of, I think my parents like to think of themselves as progressive and really hip, but that was, my father used to talk regularly about spinsters and that unlucky crowd who was waiting on some dusty shelf for some chap to come along. And I remember being really young and thinking, well, I don't want to be one of those. That's bad press. So I was actually motivated to be a heterosexual, to fulfill all of what I felt was my parents' ambitions for me. And I think that, quite often you marry, what your mother would most like to, and I wish she had, marry. Because she would have probably still be together. Apart from the age gap.
Right. So you did get married.
Yes, I did.
You must have been quite young when you got married.
I was young. I was 22.
So was I.
Yeah. Oh, my God. Not another one.
Yeah.
Yes, that is young. I think I was quite confused. It was all with good intentions. I did think, this is the best option to take. It's the safest option. And I thought, I have a choice. I thought, I'm on a spectrum. I've got a choice. And I thought, I'll take the easy option.
So did you identify, you just said then, I was on a spectrum.
Yeah.
You mean a spectrum of sexuality.
Yeah.
So at that point you knew that you were attracted to women as well. Did you think that you were? Yeah. What did you think?
Okay, I'm not quite sure actually, but it wasn't the right thing. But no, I believed that I was bisexual by that stage.
Right.
And I still think that that's a quality that most of us share. Actually, not all, but a good few people would feel kind of more fluid around those issues. And I believe that I actually did have a choice, and I actually married an Anglican, he was in training to be an Anglican minister. So when I suggested that we try it out, because that would have been the first time, I thought, let's get the research on this. And let's go to bed.
Yes,
sorry.
I've got that.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to bed. And it was kind of a brave thing because I had that sort of churchy kind of background, sort of,
Yeah.
And my ex-husband said, "Oh, I couldn't possibly do that." And I think had I actually explored my sexuality a bit more, I might have realised that there was less of a choice than I believed on the other side of it.
Yeah. So there was a lot of social things that were leading
totally.
you down that way.
Yeah, and I mean also a kind of really fundamental belief that when you commit yourself to someone, that is for a lifetime if you can. I mean, and so I had this like high bar, and I slipped actually off the bar or underneath it.
But you haven't now at all.
No, I'm in a long-term relationship, 33 years. That's long term.
Yeah.
And and when you're a lesbian, it's actually measured in cat years. So you get seven.
I didn't know that.
7 for every one. It's amazing. And so we've been together for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And I think because it was so much more difficult actually to even give it a validity to a same-sex relationship, and to sort of, I mean, when my parents found out, oh my God. My mother, I mean, she was deeply homophobic, and so was I, and I think I was homophobic. I disliked myself in an intrinsic kind of way, and I felt like it was kind of something I had to hide,
So the book, as you said, opens with you running away with Jeremy, your son.
Yes, the memoir part of it, yes. Yes.
So why at that point what made you decide at that point that you were going to take Jeremy and go?
It is quite a long story, actually, about nearly that long. But no, just summarising it, I had got a position at Whanganui, so at the Polytech there, in teaching in my area, which is art history, art and design history. So I had nothing to fall back, no money, and Susie and I were, obviously together at that stage, and I said to Sue, my pet saying was, the only thing I ever got out of the church was holy undies. And so, we had very little financial resource, and I needed a job. So I was going to shift from Christchurch to Whanganui, and in the arrangements around it, my ex-husband kind of said, well, you can have custody of them when they're 18, and that's it. And so, and I've really felt that I had to go. Jeremy was torn both ways. Alex was very clear about what he wanted, and he wanted to stay in Christchurch with my ex-husband. And so I made the decision. I was incredibly conflicted about it. And I was very anxious. Like it doesn't look like I'm anxious, but kind of I am a little bit anxious. And I was really anxious about running away with my child, and that just wasn't me. Not only was I earlier on not a lesbian, but now I wasn't actually a child abductor. But in a way, I felt like it was the only way I could reach. I could have more of my son's life. He was 10. So, and there was conflicts between, there wasn't a great relationship between he and his brother. So, so it felt like when I just asked for a few more years, a couple of years, with Jeremy coming back and Alex coming to us, I thought it was a reasonable request, but it was turned totally. There was no way to go, so I ended up escaping from Christchurch with Jeremy, and it was terribly frightening.
Yes, it's quite frightening in the book.
Yeah, I hope so, because it really was.
Yeah, and I worried about them. And
yes.
But you have a good relationship still with Jeremy, don't you?
Yes, I have. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
In fact, one time I said, you know how sexuality, our notions of sexuality have changed, and I was doing something with some year 10 students, alias fourth form, and I was on metrosexuals, and I said, Jeremy, do you think that you're a metrosexual? He's 6'6" and a bodybuilder and a weightlifter. And I said, do you think you're a metrosexual? He said, no, Mum. He said, I'm not a metrosexual. I'm a lesbian. so
there you go.
Chip off the old block. I do. Yeah, I do. And but obviously that wasn't the same with Alex. Yeah.
I worried about that as well.
Well, the last time, one of the reasons to take Jeremy was that I rang up my lawyer, who was a sort of a friend, had become a friend, and she said, I mentioned the idea of taking Jeremy, and she said, well, you realise if you go, you've abandoned your children. And if you take him, you've abducted them. And I thought that was a pretty bad choice. Yeah. Like that's hard. But she said, if you leave a child, you may never see them again. Mm. And I didn't realise how that could be really a possibility, because I thought I kind of had this inner Anne of Green Gables that I'm kind of processing, maybe Pollyanna, all of which I've failed to really live out. But I had this idea, but it didn't include abducting much or even losing my child. Totally didn't include that, because I thought I'd watched The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
And I looked at happy family values, and that's what I could imagine, and not seeing my child again was just unthinkable. And I never really did. So, and Alex has had 3 grandchildren, none of which I know about officially, and none of which I've seen.
Yep.
And I've had to live with that. And that's, I one of the things about the chess pieces is it became the metaphor for the pieces you lose.
Yeah,
in the game of life.
Yeah. And chess is an important part of that. There's loss in there.
Yes.
We were talking about discovery, but you're right, there's loss because the chessmen are lost.
In the game, yes.
Yeah. And then they're also lost on the island of Lewis and Uig.
Yes.
Is it Uig? Is that how you say it?
I think so. I must go and...
I did it.
Yeah.
I Googled it. Uig, it said Uig as in Iggy Pop. Which I thought was really interesting. So these chessmen were buried in the sand.
Yes.
But the story that you tell, just while we on that, how did you? I mean, you've created a story.
Yes.
Of who made them, how they end up there. Which is, how did you do that? It's based in what? Where did you get
lots of research? So I did a lot of research at the British Museum and other places, and so I knew the story, but it's a mystery. I love a mystery, and there's a few murders in there. That's even better. So what happened was they were discovered in 1831, and they were discovered in a sort of ceramic container in the Bay of Uig. Wow, that's amazing, because I've always mispronounced it. And a cow was kind of eating a grass bank. The bank fell away, and they cabinet was kind of, the chest was revealed, and inside were these amazing pieces. They don't know. They are medieval. They've sat on the edge of a sea front for like 700 years in this container. And so it's really remarkable because it's like a time capsule. And the guy that actually discovered them, the story is that he, superstitious Scots herder in 1831, and he believed, because they have their little faces and they look kind of grumpy and difficult, and he thought he was looking at gnomes and fairies, and he was terrified, and he threw down the spade and he ran back home, and his wife, so the story sort of goes, said, look, this is an opportunity, Malcolm, pick up your spade and go. And of course they sold them. They sold them for 30 odd pound, and
would have been quite a bit.
Which was, I think, a fortune in those days. And Malcolm and Mary were made forever. I don't even know what is. So the thing is that I thought, I love this story, and I'd lost my job, and I wanted to make up stories that made me feel happy on the way to work. And so I took all the facts, and the bits that I knew, I made sure they were in there, and there's some very firm speculations. Some, obviously, they've tested the ivory. They've done all sorts of things. So there's some things that we know, but they're actually part of 4 chess sets, 4 main pieces missing, and then a whole lot of pawns missing. And then what happened was, they thought that all of the hoard had come to the British Museum, but in actual fact 11 pieces stayed in Scotland. And then, just recently, relatively, someone found one in a drawer. It's because obviously they were a bit free with the pieces, and at the time, and so here's the British Library thinking they've got the lot, and there's these ones wandering around in Scotland that they later on, and of course the Scottish people, the museum is much more generous with making the images available. So the ones that I used were theirs because they were actually in a free domain. So I think a true memoir involves what you have in your imagination. So in some ways, I made concrete what was like haunting, not haunting in a bad way, but sort of actually keeping me alive on the way to work. And I wrote The Queen's Wife in a little pad in the middle of my palm of my hand, wrote the whole thing longhand on the way to work. And that was, and I had a sense of the strands and things. But actually, what I would do, I would go to get my pad, my pen, and I'd think, what's going to happen today? And I really didn't quite know. And so it actually was, the story was revealed.
So the structure in the book, you do a strand at a time.
Yeah.
And you do those gorgeous, are they your drawings?
Yes, that's actually Sue's drawings and mine.
Sue's drawings.
So Sue did her whakapapa drawings, and I did, my Lewis chess.
So that helps, when you see where you are.
Yeah, signpost.
Yes, signposts, which was really good.
Helpful.
It wasn't, yes. I want to talk about Sue's whakapapa.
Yes.
So can we just do that? Because I said to Sue last night, when you get a memoir or a biography, one of the glorious things is to have photographs, because we all like to pry into the person's life. And so I went to them and I stopped. We will probably see her, she'll come up, is seeing Iri Hapeti, who is Sue's ancestress.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe it. I looked at her and I thought, beautiful. I've met her before, because she is also Gavin Bishop's ancestress, and he talked about her, and he published a book last year, Atua, and had a very striking photograph of her in morning dress, which is incredible. And I thought, this is amazing. This is incredible that here she is again, this beautiful, strong, amazing woman.
Yes.
And can you just tell us a little bit about her whakapapa? Because that's the stories are really interesting.
Yeah.
Of her and her father and her brother.
Well, actually, I should say, Sue told me she was a Māori princess, and I thought, oh yeah, I believe you, but thousands wouldn't. But as we started to uncover things, it turned out that was the case. And once we got hold of, it was Gavin, but also Russell Bishop's essay. The connection, the link is to Te Whero. So Te Whero took a very young wife, a first wife, and she was actually abducted. She was sort of taken from Whakatane, from the Ngāti Pūkeko, and there was an alliance there. But she looking at Irehapati, she would have been beautiful too, and obviously a woman of high rank, and a young woman of high rank, and she actually died in childbirth. So Hinapau is Te Whero's first wife, and Hinapau had Irehapati who survived and lived on. But by the time Te Whero was made king, and he was sort of elected as more or less as head of the Confederation of Waikato tribes. It was so many years previously, and she had died so young. She wasn't really included in the list of wives, and hasn't been. But what happened was, when Irehapati had to fight for her land back, or small part of it, after the confiscations through the land court, she basically had to prove her lineage to get a section of the confiscated land back, and she did. And so the lineage was proven then, and has been become part of this sort of given knowledge around those relationships. And I mean, it's really interesting. We had this amazing. It was originally a watercolor by Angus, and it was a memorial to Te Whero's daughter, but none of his official daughters had died when it was actually painted. So we think that it was a confusion. And it's more than none of his children had died by that stage, by the time that was painted, and we think that it's probably to Hinapau, his first wife. So it's a memorial to her, and so it was a sort of uncovering, like you uncover that search for ancestry and whakapapa is which has become buried in time. By sort of this sense of shame, and the desire to be something, to integrate into another world, a much whiter world than. So it was buried. So it was wonderful, and it was actually really prompted by the fact that I said, I need to know your roots. I need to know who you are, Sue, and you need to prove to me that you are that princess. And she did.
Yeah.
But we got together.
So do you become a princess consort?
I think. Well, I am a consort. I think the Queen actually is sitting in the audience.
Right.
No, but it just seemed such a lovely way of confusing people.
Yeah.
In a way, because it's a bit of a conundrum.
Well, it's also about the fact. That's why I think it's. I mean, you are known as a biographer, and writing your own story I imagine, is quite a different thing. But it's also, it's just that snapshot of an evolution of a social history as well.
Yes.
And that all those strands are about, aren't they?
Yeah, I found that every bit as interesting as anything else I did. And I put as much verve and anxiety and tension and excitement into it because it was just as real to me and just as important to me as anything I wrote about now, us.
I'm going to dive back
and
say, can you please read us a little bit?
Okay. So is it a tiny little bit or a larger little bit?
I think how long do you think? Yeah, just go for it.
I could actually read the bit about the two queens if you.
Yes.
That might be because that's a safe thing, and if we find we've got any more time at the end, we can go for the longer one. But this is really a beginning, and it kind of the metaphor set the stage for me of the chess game. So life is a game of chess. You should try playing it with two queens. People usually see two queens and no king as game over. The laws of contest are embedded in its structures, and with a king and a queen on the board, heterosexuality reigns supreme. While the queen is arguably the most dangerous piece on the board, protecting the inadequate king is what the game is all about. He moves just one square at a time, not enough to save himself unless a clever queen, bishop, knight, rook, or pawn has his back. Having two queens in courtly love on the board changes everything. The laws of nature are defied. The rules of engagement are tipped upside down. And each move is uncharted. I was naive when I believed I could play on with a queen as a mate as if it made no difference. In fact, the game for me would never be the same again, and no move I made unaffected by this pairing. In the end, like chess, it is a contest of life is a contest of strategic cruelty, of pieces won and lost, of sacrifices made to survive. This book is the story of a game with two queens, of two women in love, battling to stay together on the board.
Of those three strands and what they've woven, if you were doing things again, hindsight is interesting. Do you think it would be different now? Do you think the abduction would have been different?
Now? Yeah. Well, I don't know.
It's such a bold word. Didn't really feel like an abduction.
Yeah, no, yes, of course. No, I think it is. I think that's fair enough. I think it is because really, legally, that's pretty much what it is. I think today, hopefully, you would have a better result and a more. But I did have a very sympathetic hearing when we were heard, and I did get Jeremy with me, and the decision was for him to stay with me. So I was. It wasn't all negative, but I think the issue is it's always about personalities, and separations are really about negotiating a win-win rather than a lose-lose. And I think if you're dealing with a personality who wants to win at your expense, You'll never sort that one out, no matter what time frame you want to do it in.
Right.
But there might be more protection for you in it, socially. But essentially, it is a game. It is a contest, and it depends on the players, always. And so I think while I may not have made the decision I made to get married, though as I said, it had no research behind it. Today, I could have felt more at peace with myself and more okay about it. And so my decision might have been different. I'm not sure that what actually happened between my ex-husband and I would have been much different, even today. I don't know. I can't honestly say. But I suspect some of the dynamics would have come into play, and the outcome could have been similar.
One of the other interesting things is your life as an academic, and your changes of jobs. What are you doing now? Tell me about your life now.
I lost my job when we were all restructured out at Unitec in 2014, and I sat at home waiting for the perfect tertiary job to come up. At the same time, all of the universities were getting rid of their staff, doing the old neoliberal bean counting. We don't need the arts anymore, so let's just have everybody doing IT. So I wanted to replace that job. I loved my job and I loved my students. But in the end, Susan came in one day and she said, "Are you still sitting here waiting to get that magical job?" And she's quite harsh at times and very confronting. And I looked up at her and she said, "You know, you need to get out there." She said, "You need to get your CV together and you need to walk the streets like I had to." And I thought, oh, damn. So that's what I did. And actually, it took me a long time because I was overqualified for teaching. But of course, when I ended up at Avondale College and started teaching there in 2015, there was actually 3 PhDs in the English department. So I mean, I felt, my colleagues are the great win. Because they are such wonderful people, and let's hope they listen to the podcast. I know the students won't, so I can quite honestly say that I love teaching, and I don't mind teaching year 10s, and it is entertaining. But I would rather really be in the world of ideas rather than controlling phone use. You know. And I feel that I wasn't put on this earth really to do that, but I actually had a fairly low opinion of myself as a teacher because I felt I probably had spent too much time writing The Queen's Wife on the way to work and not focused enough on my students. But I filled out my personal growth cycle, my PGC. And it's one of those things you fill out and it's got endless questions. And I had to do the statistics for my IG class. So it's Cambridge and it's marked in England. And you have 3 terms and you run yours. And I did. And the top is an A star and the bottom is F. And beyond that, you've only just written your name on the page. And I ended up, when I went and got all my statistics together, I had 20 A's.
Well done.
And 9 A stars.
Cool.
And I thought, I'm actually a good teacher.
Yeah.
But I had completely lost sight of that in the way that our schools are run and managed. And it's very disheartening what's happening to teaching. So more or less the system is making me want to be somewhere else.
Okay. Are you going to write more of your memoir?
Well, there is another 20-odd years.
Yeah.
And I did actually interview Anne Perry, Juliet Hume, for 50 hours. And I did have that relationship with Henrietta Garnett. Yeah. So there is more to say.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'll say it, though. Well, anybody prepared to publish it? Because I always find that hard. Getting it's always an ordeal. You have to spin it, and then when I got The Queen's Wife, the woman, I rang up my publisher at Penguin. I said, "Look, I need some extra time because of COVID. I haven't been able to get into archives. I was writing a history of the New Zealand Listener, and I said I need to extend the deadline." And she said, "Have you got something under your bed?" And actually, at one stage, it was my partner, but.
That's a very good story. That's a very good story. You're going to have to tell people that story.
Should I, though?
Yes, it's a great story.
I say it's so much easier to do it when you're writing because you've got this one person that's listening. You imagine is reading your story.
Nobody else is here.
Yeah,
just tell me.
No, okay, right, I will. So Susie and I made an appointment to make love for the first time. That's how we did it. I said, what what about 9:30 on Monday? She said, oh no, I can't possibly make it 9:30. She said, that's my shopping day. So, because I figured out if we didn't make an appointment, it would never happen, and it was so scary for both of us. Because I mean, she acted like I knew what I was doing, and I'd never been to bed with a woman before. So, like, I was virginal in many ways, but not that way. So anyway, what happened was it was good, and I realised that I should have tried it out before, and I, so we kind of developed this idea that we could have this relationship, this friendship that had become so intense that it had this physical dimension. And she would stay a heterosexual, and I would stay in limbo. And we at my place we would meet, and so what happened, and we would make love in this spare bed in my office. So it was. It's desperate, really. I mean, I shouldn't have written this, so we did that, and then one day I forgot to. I was so enthusiastic about it, I forgot to lock the door, and one time we were interrupted by my father, and he didn't get as far as the bedroom, but my father came in, and there I am going, oh my God, I said, quick. So we're throwing our clothes on, and I ended up with Sue's bra, which is it's too ample. And so I chucked, it was it's hot air balloons, honestly. So I threw, and me, like flat as a board, but trying, trainer bra. So we desperately were dressing, and I said, get under the bed. And so there was another time when we had, the other time a real estate agent team were listing our house, and they actually had a key. And so I managed to lock the door and had everything okay. And I actually did tell Susan to get under the bed, because I felt like, because I knew that I couldn't actually intercept that one. I intercepted. So I knew that if she wasn't out of sight, substantially out of sight, it's a very low bed. and I'm just panicking, because I'm thinking, and there was a whole team of them, and they've got the clipboards going through the house, having a look at each room. They started with the kitchen. They were moving through to our room, and I'm going, get under the bed. Get under the bed. And anyway, I just had this, no wonder I'm anxious. And so there I'm burning, and I'm kind of I've got the wrong button in it's terrible. It's nothing like that to kind of wake you up to changing your situation. Yeah. And so I got it there, and the guy goes, I said, oh, would you like a cup of tea? I thought yes, 5 of them or something. Would you like a cup of tea? And the guy goes, disappointingly, he said, oh, no, we've got other houses to look at today, but thank you very much. And I said, oh, I didn't realise you were coming. And he said, I should have realised, because weeks ago he'd asked. And they go into the kids' room, and they're looking at that, and then the clipboards are all out, and they're, ticking boxes, and then they move into the bedroom that we're in. I thought, oh my God, here we go. Susan's going to be there on display for the full, I don't know what it was, like, I don't know, one of those real estate groups, and Barfoot and Thompson or something, I don't know, with Barefoot actually was probably more appropriate. They moved in, and I thought, oh no, oh my God. And I looked in after them, and there was no sign of Sue, not one. And were you under the bed? And you weren't. She was under the bed. She was under the bed. Oh my God, I don't know whether we could do that now. Yeah. So we decided to get a room, our own room. So we actually rented a top story shop in a mall that had kind of, yeah, I know. We had to put newspaper all over the picture window.
It's such a good read. It's so funny.
Anyway,
yes, I'm not going. No
I hope I
spoilers.
haven't shocked you and put you off reading it.
Yeah. Now, I have to stop and give people the opportunity.
Yeah, well, this is a good time.
Yeah, if they would like to ask you some questions. So have we got the excellent... Oh, there goes the lights. That's good. Has anybody got a question on that? You know, they probably want to know the rest of that story, which is excellent.
Oh,
all good.
Yes. I was crap at chess. Actually, I was rubbish, but I did love it because I felt that it was interesting that each piece had a series of moves that it could make, and someone always used to beat me, but I like to think that I was a little bit cerebral, so I joined that chess group, and I was there amongst some really good players. But yeah, I did play chess, and I intend to play it with the pieces. Actually, in the book, I've sort of said that they're all done, but there is a little bit of work to do on a couple of them. So it's been 14 years. But yeah, and actually, the funny thing was I felt like a serial killer, carving them, because you have to take the marrow out of the, and it's awful. If you're a vegetarian, you could not do this. And sometimes I'd leave them too long, the bones. But you felt like you were obliged because my first one was a New World meat tray. I got a rook off a meat tray, and it's quite. I got really good at picking the right bones, because it's not any bone will do, and some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller, and some of them you look at after a while and you think, oh, that was a healthy beast, because it's very white. And the red ones I had to dye the red ones for 6 months. I mean, it's not something you do lightly.
So you immerse them in dye?
In dye, yeah. And
for 6 months?
Yeah, and originally, with the first things that we did, I used a vegetable dye, and because I was, all about the planet, and then I realised when they faded that I had to be like Dylon, so Dylon. And I remember going in, and I walked into this chemist shop, and I said, I'm looking for... This woman came up to me. I couldn't find the dial on the stand, and she came up to me and she said, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Yes, I'm looking for the dial on." And she said, "Well, maybe I can help you. What are you dyeing?" And I said, "Bones." And she said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you."
But did you say that the opposite?
Yeah, it's red. They're red.
How would they have dyed them?
They faded.
They faded. So that's why they look...
Yeah. So they all look the same. But actually, originally, when they just came out of the container, they were red. One side was... A group of them were red. And in fact, you can still sort of remove some sort of residue of the colour from the pieces. Yeah.
Have we got any other questions there? Oh, I can see a hand. Thank you.
I'm honestly happy to answer anything. That was the deal I made with myself. I wouldn't ask less of myself than my subjects. Yes.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, with the demise of subjects like art history at university, what do you think of the future for collecting and curating of the equivalent finds of an Uig chess set, for example?
Yeah, it is a good question. And it breaks my heart that we are so shallow in the way that we look at the relationship between business and money and culture. I mean, I think it's a real worry. But I think that the bigger worry is that our children and our children's children are not getting that in their education. They're not actually being able to further that. So not only do you not have the experts to handle it, but you don't have the sympathetic audience to be transported by it, to understand another world, to connect with a past, to value objects in the way that we should, and to the stories that are part of those objects. And I think it's beyond a tragedy, it's the transformation of our world from the human to the machine. And Bitcoin, So it's terrible. And the irony is that no one realises that culture is money. Culture creates money. It tracks identity. It remembers stories. But in a way, when we go somewhere, we don't go there to see their IT. We don't go to Britain to see their transport system, unless you're interested in that. There's probably a few people here that might be, but you go to the museum, you go to the theatre, you go to the art gallery. You listen to someone talking at a book festival. That's what we exchange. We exchange the beauty of our past and our culture with our visitors. So, I think that is totally so important. A kind of neoliberal disembowering of who we are and deconstructing of it is just the biggest tragedy. Yeah. And I think there should be a lot more art historians. But don't teach at Avondale College because you won't get one class.
Yeah. Not a very interesting question, but did you attend a girls' school or a co-educational school for your secondary education? Because you come from Christchurch, don't you? You lived in Christchurch.
You got the Christchurch bit. Yeah, no, totally, because that's exactly... I arrived in Christchurch not that long ago, got in a taxi, and the guy I said I was brought up and educated in Christchurch, and he said, which high school did you go to? and I went to my father went to Christ College, my mother went to Girls High, and I went to Marlborough. I mean, Marlborough. They were flushing kids' heads down the toilet.
Yeah.
I was fortunately the same size as I am now. But you know what? I loved it. And it was a co-educational, and it had no pretensions, and no network, which my father absolutely used all through his whole life. No network, because I don't even think they know that I exist, Marlborough. But I was kind of in the real world. And you know what? The weird thing was, most of my friends were lesbians, and I didn't know it, because I was so homophobic, they weren't honest. Yeah. So they were kind of friends, obviously slightly removed friends. But anyway, it was really interesting. I should have woken up to myself a bit better than I did. But, I think we all live but you're right. No, co-ed and hard-nosed, tough. I saw stuff and heard stuff and was part of situations which I think have kept me in good stead all my life, because in some ways I was never protected. I wasn't protected at home, and I wasn't protected at school. And so I'm a survivor. And that's partly why the story starts when I met Sue.
Yeah, I was going to say the last pieces on the board.
Yes, there's my past childhood, which was pretty traumatic at times, and so in a way I wanted the book to grow into the bit of my life that, even though that had its own traumas, I felt I could kind of talk about the other stuff. My mother was still alive. She died of COVID last year.
Yes, I saw that it's almost a year.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was actually at Sissinghurst.
Were you?
Yeah, on the anniversary of her death, and I had to be there because I just wanted to be somewhere that felt like I was there thinking about her, but also in an environment where I had a history.
Yeah.
My Turinga Waiwai of the sort of Bloomsbury and
Vetasack,
Vetasackville West.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. Anybody else got a question up there? Better stop, I suppose. All right. I just wanted to say in defence of businesses that support the arts. No.
Yeah.
That that this festival, people like the Sutherlands.
Yes.
And good families like that contribute to feel like they're part of the community. So people can seek out those businesses that do that.
And Ockham, Ockham runs so it's the choices in some ways that institutions make in a business model, hospitals, schools, business models that suit business but don't suit the humanities in quite the same way. And I think we would not be here without private enterprise. It's crucial, and I've never made that. I've never got that wrong. My father was New Zealand sales director of Von Brushes, and so I lived with business, and he used to say to me, "You only need one person that wants what you've got more than your money," and it was a great way of realizing that everything is an exchange, and it's wonderful that some of that exchange is invested in culture.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been extraordinary meeting you, and it was extraordinary reading your book. I loved it. And here's to art historians, may we know them and love them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
That was a fantastic conversation from the 2023 Marlborough Book Festival. Tickets for this year's event are selling fast, so don't miss out. Head to marlboroughbookfest.co.nz to grab yours now. Stay tuned for more exciting previews, and thanks for listening.